Good morning, members of the Committee of General Affairs, members of Parliament, support staff, radio listeners, TV viewers, those following via social media, and members of the media. Welcome to this committee meeting of General Affairs, meeting number 2 for today, Wednesday, November 20th, 2024. I would like to give a special welcome to the Honorable Prime Minister of Sint Maarten and Minister of General Affairs, Dr. Luc Merselina, and his respective support staff. We have established a quorum of 7 members. Please stand for a moment of silence. I have received notice of absence from the following committee members: MP Viren Kotai. Are there any notifications of the members of Parliament? I'm not seeing any notifications. The agenda points for this committee meeting are: 1. Report auditing public sector travel and Parlatino membership. IS number 324-2023-2024, dated January 9, 2024. Agenda point number 2, discussion with the Minister of General Affairs on the changes in granting the Dutch nationality on Sint Maarten. IS number 1079-2022-2023, dated September 6, 2023. We go over to agenda point number 1. On January 8, 2024, the General Audit Chamber issued a report titled Auditing Public Sector Travel and Parlatino Membership. This document is registered under IS number 324-2023-2024. This report was handled in a faction leaders meeting on July 3, 2024, and it was decided that Parliament will look into the recommendations by the Audit Chamber, but that the Minister of General Affairs should be called to a committee meeting first to discuss public sector travel in general and to hear from the government on the response on this report by the General Audit Chamber. However, preparations still need to be finalized. Thus, now we will adjourn this agenda point until another time. I adjourn this agenda point. We now go over to agenda point number 2, the discussion with the Minister of General Affairs on the changes in granting the Dutch nationality on Sint Maarten. IS number 1079-2022-2023, dated September 6, 2023. On September 6, 2023, Parliament received a letter from MP Wescot-Williams with a request for a committee meeting with the Minister of General Affairs regarding the changes in granting the Dutch nationality on Sint Maarten. I would first like to give the floor to the requester of this meeting to elucidate on her request. MP Wescot-Williams, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady, and good morning to you. A good morning to my colleagues, and a good morning to the Prime Minister and his entourage here this morning. A good morning to all tuned in to this committee meeting of Parliament. Madam Chair Lady, as you rightfully indicated, the request for this meeting to receive some information and elucidation from the Prime Minister, the one responsible for the civil registry of Sint Maarten, is dated more than a year ago. And as I indicated in my request for this meeting, I mentioned just one of several adjustments to the guidelines for handling requests for the Dutch nationality, requests for the Dutch nationality. And these guidelines specifically referred to the application of the guidelines to Sint Maarten, Curaçao, and in some cases, Sint Maarten, Curaçao, and Aruba. And in my request, I mentioned a particular decision by the State Secretary of Justice at the time with respect to these matters, and you would see where reference in those changes or those applications to, amongst others, Sint Maarten, regard matters like the so-called statelessness of persons. In addition to that, Madam Chair Lady, I've brought to the floor of this Parliament already the question with respect to the taking away of the Dutch nationality from persons. And if in his capacity as Prime Minister, some elucidation can be given as to when and how this takes place. I think it's noteworthy to mention that I have had contact with the Prime Minister some time ago, some months ago, on a particular case, again, asking the questions as to how, when does it happen, because I think it's important for people to know what, how. You get people going to the census office and claim, if it is so or not, I would like to know. You know, that when they do go to renew passports or such, they're told that no, they no longer can enjoy the Dutch nationality because of whatever reason, marriage, what you name it. And many persons have seen this happen to them during the time that they voting time, receive voting cards, have been able to vote, but in you know, then they no longer enjoy the Dutch rights. And I would just like if some clarification can be given on that as well. So how does the process go? When does it happen? How can a person be told, you know, we check back your files, and thus you can get your passport renewed because you no longer enjoy Dutch rights? So if some just information can be given, and as it's given in here, then hopefully persons will also understand, persons who have been affected will also understand what exactly happened in that case. But again, coming back to the request, it's dated more than a year ago, and it was on the basis of a specific instruction, so to speak, issued at a time that was applicable to Curaçao and Sint Maarten. Hence, my request for this meeting. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. But before I give you back the floor, I just need to understand with respect to the previous agenda point, just that we understand that, yes, you have adjourned it, and rightfully so, but is the government going to look at and formulate a position on the report in question? So the report of the General Audit Chamber as far as travel is concerned. Travel not only for Parliament, travel for government. So is that the time that we're looking at to be given? I just need that to be confirmed so that we know, yes, the government will look at it and give an opinion on the report and some of the recommendations in the report. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP Wescot-Williams. Just to answer your question in regards to agenda point number 1, I have been told that is indeed the plan, that there's a timeline, that they're currently working on it, and it will be handled in this committee meeting as well on a later date. I would now like to give the floor to the Honorable Prime Minister, Dr. Luc Marcelino, for his opening remarks and our presentation on this agenda point. Prime Minister, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Madam Chair, Secretary General, members of Parliament, persons in the Tribune, and the people of Sint Maarten, good morning. Thank you for the invitation to discuss this important subject matter. Next to my members of my cabinet, Mr. Johnson as Chief of Staff and Mr. Plantain as Legal Advisor, I also want to acknowledge the presence of Mrs. Angelique Gums as Interim Secretary General of the Ministry of General Affairs, and also the Department Head of the Civil Registry Department, Mrs. Cathy Snyder, who will, with your approval, give a presentation to Parliament with a true information session on this specific subject. But first, I want to provide Parliament with a brief introduction on the cleaning up of the basic administration system. Since 1010, when Sint Maarten became an autonomous country in the Kingdom of the Netherlands, the Civil Registry Department was under supervision of the Commission Bandel concerning the issuing of, for example, passports. One of the points of the Commission Bandel was that the basic administration of Sint Maarten was not up to par and needed a project to clean up the system that shows a more accurate and realistic representation of the population and their profile. It seems like many persons registered in Sint Maarten back then have either moved to a new address or, in some instances, to another country. As per the National Ordinance Basic Personal Administration of the Population, the Civil Registry Department has the responsibility to maintain an accurate record of all citizens. Further, all matters pertaining to the population registry are regulated by the National Ordinance on the Establishment and Maintenance of the Population Registry. Pursuant to Article 3 sub 1 of the National Decree Article 13, Paragraph 2 of the Basic Personal Records Administration, actually de Landsverordening Basis Administratie Persoongegevens, the Minister of General Affairs is the holder of the basic administration, and as per Article 3, Paragraph 2, the head of the Civil Registry Department is charged with the responsibility of the upkeep of the basic personal records administration. In addition, the department head maintains ongoing investigations and regular supervision of the population register for correct compliance of the regulations relating to the population registry. When it appears that some persons have no actual residence in Sint Maarten, the head of the Civil Registry Department must take action to ensure that the information in the basic administration and in the population registry is corrected so that the population register accurately reflects the state of the population. The citizens also have their obligations. First, based on the laws mentioned, persons that move to another address on the island must report this within 5 days of moving to the Civil Registry Department. Furthermore, persons who leave Sint Maarten and are moving to, for example, the Netherlands or a other island within the kingdom must notify the head of the Civil Registry Department of this. When doing this, they must provide the new address where they wish to settle. At that time, they will receive a certificate of change of residence, declaration of deregistration, it's called. When settling in another part of the kingdom, they will also receive this document, which will enable them to register in their new country of residence. It is imperative for individuals who left Sint Maarten to fulfill their obligation to deregister with the Civil Registry Department. Failure to do so may result in these individuals continuing, for example, to be registered as part of the population, leading to potential financial consequences for the country. For example, several entities, including the SZV, our Social and Health Insurance, and the Social Department of the Ministry of VSA, could be adversely affected by this situation. For instance, SZV may inadvertently pay pensions to individuals who are no longer contributing to the economy of Sint Maarten. Similarly, the social department may provide social aid to individuals who are no longer residing in the country. The Civil Registry Department initiated the project to clean up the basic administration in 2011. The proactive steps taken, such as requesting individuals to bring their breeder's document for profile update between 2011 and 2013, and the ongoing practice of verifying Dutch nationality for passport renewal request from 2011 to the present, underscore a commitment to maintaining accurate and up-to-date records. It has been observed, however, that after hurricane, a large number of individuals left Sint Maarten and have not returned. Over the past few years, we have seen a huge difference between the number of people registered on the island and the count resulting from a census from the Department of Statistics. From this, the department concluded that there are many persons registered, however, they no longer reside on Sint Maarten. This info led the department to start the next phase of their clean-up project. This resulted in an investigation project to identify who lives on Sint Maarten and who does not. This is tedious work that requires a lot of manpower and time to realize this project based on queries established, some groups that fall the first rounds of our investigation. Once someone has been identified, a letter will be sent to the citizen via mail requesting them to verify their address. If no reaction is received within 2 weeks, a house visit will be conducted. If the person in question is not at that address, another letter will be sent by mail, giving them an additional 2 weeks to react. If no reaction is received after these 2 weeks, the person will be deregistered from the system based on no activity in the PIVA for the past 10 years. The Civil Registry Department has established that there are groups with no valid residence permits, as well as groups with no renewal of Dutch passports for the last 5 to 10 years in the system. Finally, I would like to refer to the decree of the Dutch State Secretary of Justice and Security dated June the 28th, 2023, the number of the WBN, de wijzigingsbesluit, handleidings Rijkswet Nederlandschap, which was referred to by the Honourable Member of Parliament, Mrs. Sarah Wescot-Williams, in the letter of September 2023. In this letter, the Member of Parliament expressed her concern that the changes made in the mentioned decree, the guidelines for applying the Kingdom law on the Dutch nationality, changes have been effected for the application of the nationality law on Curaçao and Sint Maarten. Her concern is that the mentioned changes could have considerable impact on the attainment or loss of Dutch nationality by residents or citizens of Sint Maarten. Madam Chair, the department head of the Civil Registry Department will go into details on this decree. However, I can already assure Parliament that with the mentioned decree, there will be no considerable impact on the attainment or loss of the Dutch nationality for the people of Sint Maarten. But of course, I'm open to have that discussion with Parliament if that is needed. I want to refer to the Article 14 in the mentioned decree, in which it is mentioned under which circumstances you can lose the Dutch nationality. I will now give some examples in a case when Dutch nationality was attained based on fake information or the consciously hiding of relevant information in relation with the request. A other example is, for example, the authority of the Minister of Justice acting as Minister of Kingdom to retract the Dutch nationality in case of a guilty verdict of crimes mentioned in the Dutch Criminal Code, as specified in the decree. A third example is, for example, if person older than 16 years join a foreign army. With this, Madam Chair, I ask your indulgence for me to give the floor to the department head of the Civil Registry Department for the presentation to Parliament. Thank you, yes. Madam Chair.
Thank you, Prime Minister. And yeah, Ms. Snijders, you have the floor to give the presentation as requested.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, members of Parliament. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, media and all listener citizens of Sint Maarten. As head of the Civil Registry Department, we have a ongoing updating of our system, and the Prime Minister mentioned most of the information already, but I will still go through it. We are mandated to upkeep the basic person records from Sint Maarten. Sint Maarten has several basic administration, let me put it like that, and we are the one mandated for the person's information, whereby our section is divided in two sections, where we have the registration part and the register part. Those two combines make our population registry. We have the registry whereby all birth, death, and marriages are registered, and we have the part whereby we have the information in our system that we supply the citizens with an ID card, passport, driver license, etc., registration form, etc. Maintaining of this system requires our ongoing investigation and regular supervision of the population registry. How do we do that? I will explain later in the presentation. As the Minister mentioned, we check also all the residence permits in the system to see who is active, yes or no, in our basic administration. Article 3 of the National Decree of the Basic Personal Records mentioned that the Minister is responsible for our basic administration, and the head of Civil Registry is the person that maintains the upkeep and the investigations of the administration. Challenges for the Civil Registry Department is outdated population data. As the Prime Minister explained, we have persons that left the island during Irma or before that. We have persons going away for study and never returned to Sint Maarten. We have persons passed away abroad, and that information is never recorded in our system. So we have persons that are alive in our system, but in actuality passed away abroad. Discrepancy between registered residents and actual census data. When house-to-house census did their investigation, our numbers are much higher than the census data. Citizens without a valid residence permit, as I explained, we have a large amount of persons that have are registered in our system, but the residence permit expired a few years back. Citizens that did not renew the Dutch passport for the 10 years are still registered in our system. All those persons, we have sent our first letters to them asking them whereabouts. Lack of compliances with deregistration is a great phenomenon on Sint Maarten, in the sense of the persons do not know maybe the law, or they just feel the bond of Sint Maarten to be able to come back to renew an ID card or driver license. However, the law is applicable also for this situation. As the Prime Minister mentioned, financial implication for key entities, SZV and Social Department. SZV, or our pension age, can become higher because of the amount of persons that are registered in our system, and SZV use our data to supply their information or to base their decision on the amount of persons registered in the civil registry. Cleanup project. We started in 2011 with a cleanup project. We had persons from abroad came and helped us clean the project. First step was to see how we register person in the system. We have a logic ontwerp, we call it in the Dutch, whereby it shows us the steps how to register someone in the system. Seeing that the system was built in 1997, there was not much knowledge about how to register someone in the system. The first step was to clean up so each person's profile was correctly filled. The second action that we had was going to Aruba and Curacao. We got all the birth certificates that was necessary for persons that was born in Aruba, Curacao. Bonaire, Ceiba, and Statia, we did request them via email, and we received them because there was less than Aruba and Curacao. All the birth certificates that we were able to get, we registered them, update all citizens' profile. A profile of a person has several steps. We have the person itself, the parents, the marriage, nationality, and their address. So all of those profiles, steps in the profile has to be updated. After that, we looked at all the legal residencies in the system. We looked at passport applications. Since 2011, every passport application will be taken at the front office, and in the back office, we do an in-depth research of the nationality. After 2017, we had an advice from the Netherlands that we have to submit also a form by every application. How did you become Dutch, and or are you still Dutch, or do you have other nationality besides your Dutch nationality? So this form is required for us to submit by every application of a passport. That helps us to establish if someone is still Dutch, yes or no. Also, that information I will go more in depth in a next presentation. Birth certificate requested from persons that were not born within the Netherlands Antilles. We do have to ask them to contact their authorities to bring in their birth certificate, seeing that civil registry don't have that contact with all the countries in the world, seeing that we have around 109 different nationalities registered in our system. And the next action that we do is the address verification. However, it is by law, a lot of persons don't abide by this and does not come and register the correct address. And that's also one of the reasons why persons does not receive their letters from the civil registry department asking their whereabouts. Recent observations from the civil registry department is post-Hurricane Irma, significant population movement, indicating many registered persons, but they are not anymore living here on Sint Maarten. Now I want to touch base the nationality. De Dutch Nationality Ordinance, Rijkswet op het Nederlanderschap. The manual, it has the law and also the manual for the application of the Dutch National Act of 2003 is the most recent act. Next to it, we have the amendment that happens now and then for the manual of the passport of the Dutch Nationality Application Act. The amendment is the part whereby the Minister of Justice and Veiligheid, IND in the Netherlands, most of the times they keep a record of things that are changed in the Netherlands and submit a request for change in the amendment. They request amendment in the manual, not in the law, only in the manual. And the WBN CM 03 from 2023 was a change in the manual of the national application of the Dutch nationality. What was the change in that legal frame? The amendment to the manual for the application of the Dutch Nationality Act 2003 was more specific in the Netherlands, whereby the Netherlands created a bill whereby a new determination of the procedure that allows people who believe they are stateless to have this determined by a judge. Municipalities are only allowed to register statelessness in the basisregister persoon if this has been established by a judge or if it is evident statelessness. This does not apply to Sint Maarten and Curaçao, as it is dependent for the civil registry department to establish if the person is stateless, yes or no. How does this work? Persons who subject to the relevant nationality legislation are not actually considered national by any country or stateless within the meaning of the Rijkswet op het Nederlanderschap. This brings the definition of the term statelessness. For civil registry, this can be determined by bringing proof that you cannot get any documents from your country. So I can take, for instance, a country as Jamaica. we have quite some residents from Jamaica in Sint Maarten. So Jamaica is a country whereby if a child is born on Sint Maarten, this child does not automatically get the Jamaican nationality. For this child to get the Jamaican nationality, the parents has to go to the Jamaican authority to request the passport from Jamaica for this child. By the moment of birth for this child, for us, the child is not stateless. We will register this child as onbekend nationaliteit until the parents bring in the passport that prove that this child is stateless or that they have the passport. So if Jamaican refuse to issue a passport for this child, and we can see that both parents are from Jamaica, and for one reason or the other, Jamaica refused to issue a passport, then this child might become stateless. However, we register first onbekend until the parents can prove such. At this present moment, Civil Registry only have 3 persons registered in our basic administration as stateless. This statelessness brings for them at a certain moment that they can require an option procedure by the government of Sint Maarten to request the Dutch nationality. So statelessness is, in fact, very limit low, let me use that word, low on Sint Maarten. And we have not have much to do with statelessness when it comes to civil registry. First, the reason why is that they cannot be registered without going through the process of immigration department. Once they go to the immigration department and they can prove that they are stateless, then the Minister of Justice will issue them, based on their regulation, the residence permit, yes or no, and then they can come to register at the civil registry as stateless. So for civil registry, it might be that Sint Maarten has more cases. However, for SEC civil registry, we only have 3 cases in our basic administration. On the amendment of the manual for the application of the Dutch nationality, prior to each amendment, the Sint Maarten and Curaçao gets a letter asking if there is any objection to this amendment. From there, the amendment will be adjusted in compliance to the objections that Sint Maarten or Curaçao, in some cases Aruba, will have. The governor of Sint Maarten is ultimately responsible for the application of the Kingdom Act on the Dutch citizenship. In the Netherlands, as I just explained, the Minister of Justice and Security is responsible for that part of the statelessness. I think I cover the part, this sheet already, the stateless procedure, whereby we always put the information in our system as onbekend until the parents can prove, or the person can prove, that they are stateless. legal framework execution by Civil Registry Department. With regards to the Dutch nationality, Civil Registry acts only on Article 3, 4, and 5 of the Nationality Ordinance, Rijkswet op het Nederlanderschap. Also, we act on the laws of the Dutch nationality, Article 14, 15, or 16. For Civil Registry, Article 15 is the most applicable law that we use when it comes to laws of nationality. How does it work with Article 15? We have the Article 15 says, when someone voluntarily acquires another nationality, the main rule is that you lose the Dutch nationality. Most of the time, the question is posed, is dual nationality a accepted situation in the nationality law? Yes, persons can have dual nationality. However, this all is established by the law. Once you request another nationality, there are a few exemptions on becoming dual citizenship. The first one is if you're married to the person that is from that nationality. Not that you and your partner naturalize at the same time. No, one has to have that nationality before, and then if the other naturalized, then they can remain with the Dutch nationality. So, Civil Registry will never just remove the Dutch nationality from someone because they naturalized. You have to provide us with a marriage certificate, a passport from your husband, proving, or your wife, depends which one naturalized, that at the time that you acquired the other nationality, that you were married to someone from that nationality. The other way to keep the nationality is when you were in that country and you're working for the Dutch that sent you abroad and you acquire the nationality. Also, we have the other possibility for you to lose your nationality is when you have dual nationality and in an uninterrupted period of 13 years after attaining adulthood, and you never renew your Dutch passport after that or within 13 years, then you will also lose the Dutch nationality. Also, you can lose the Dutch nationality by renunciation of your Dutch nationality or revocation of nationality. The Dutch nationality also, when minors while minors, you can lose the Dutch nationality when your mother or father requests the court for ontkenning vaderschap, then remove your father's name, then you will lose the Dutch nationality, if it's applicable to you. These laws of nationality is not something that Civil Registry does without investigation. Yes, it is very difficult that persons thus lost their Dutch nationality. First of all, civil registry has to make sure that no one becomes stateless because of a loss of the nationality. Then we will go through all the steps. First, we do a voornemen. We give you the opportunity to make sure that you are aware of the situation. We give you opportunity to bring all documents that can prove that you have not lost the Dutch nationality. And then, after that, we will make the beschikking if you lost it, yes or no. And all this is in cooperation with the Netherlands. Once it is established that the person lost the Dutch nationality, we will make correction in the basic administration. The reason for all this is that in the future, government of Sint Maarten would like to become an e-government, and we have to make sure that we are providing the correct information to all entities that are using our system. Also, for persons that want to naturalize Dutch, they also have to have a good information in our basic administration to be able to obtain the Dutch nationality. Thank you for your attention. This was our presentation.
Thank you, Prime Minister, and thank you, Ms. Snijders. Before giving the floor to the members of Parliament, I would like to request to get the presentation. The Parliament can get a copy of the presentation provided. Thank you, Prime Minister. To which member of Parliament can I give the floor? I'm seeing MP Heiliger-Martin. You have the floor.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair Lady. Thank you. And good afternoon to all listening and viewing. And thank you for your presentation, Mr. Prime Minister and Ms. Snijders. I just have two brief questions. Ms. Snijders, through you, Madam Chair Lady, Ms. Snijders stated that that registered right now, we have 3 stateless persons registered right now. But she also mentioned that they register a child as unbekend. My question is, how many of those registers, how many persons you have right now registered as unbekend? And is there like a time frame? So say, for instance, the child is born, you register the child unbekend, and then after 6 months you're not hearing from the parents. Do you actively contact the parents and say, hey, the child is still unbekend and we need to register them as something, you know, maybe are you going to acknowledge them? It's about a couple of years past, or we just leave them like that as unbekend? That's one question. And then my next question is regarding same-sex marriage. We have a few of those on the island. How are those registered here in Sint Maarten? How is that done, seeing that we don't have the law, and how do we support that in our system? And lastly, another administrative question for kids that are born in the US and have parents with Dutch citizenship, which automatically mother and father both Dutch, and they acknowledge and they receive their Dutch passport. Why is it that we constantly have to, every time they need to renew their Dutch passport, ask for their birth certificate? I remember, so in the beginning you ask for the birth certificate with the apostille stamp, and then 5 years later you need to request the same birth certificate with apostille stamp. Why do we constantly do that? Do we not put that information in the system? And just an administrative question. That's it for me, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP Heiliger-Martin. I now give the floor to MP Doran.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Good afternoon to you, my honorable colleagues, the Honorable Prime Minister, his support staff, persons in the Tribune, and the people of Sint Maarten that are tuned in. Madam Chair, I have a few points. First and foremost, thank you for the presentation. I heard Ms. Snyder's mention that someone will not lose their nationality if it will make them stateless. If I'm not mistaken, that's what I understood. But I personally know of certain instances where persons have lost their nationality and were not able to acquire any other nationality. So I would like to get some clarity on that and what has been done in cases like these. I understand that we don't control nationality. That is clear to me. I mean, I've been around enough to understand that fact. But what are we doing in certain cases where persons lose their passport, lose their ID card, lose their everything? In certain cases, I know some people that are retired cannot collect their pension over the couple of years. What are the safeguards? Do we then have, or can we then work on a policy? I know that justice controls residency, and in that case, then an ID card can be issued. Is this being thought of? I know that we had this discussion back and forth a lot in the Council of Ministers, but for me personally, I don't see where a concrete way has been determined. So I'm glad for this meeting actually to know that if there's been any progress thus far with that is concerned. Because I think that that is quite troubling because basically we force people into poverty. I've seen instances where 8 siblings all lose their nationality, all their children lose their nationality in certain instances. If some of them, let's say, have a Dutch father or mother, they are saved somehow, and then it's a whole mess. And I know that it wasn't created overnight. And there's even some cases where the great-grandmother passed away that was acknowledged, and based on the request, it seemed as if that was the issue, or great-grandfather. So I really would like some clarity if there's a joint policy between AZ and Justice that can be worked on, especially in the interim, to safeguard these persons with their livelihood, to at least be able to get ways and means of identification so that they can sort of continue with their life while they fight their case. Because I find it quite unfortunate, and I know that, let's say, for instance, you can't blame me for something that my great-great-grandfather did or did not do years ago, and we can't justify it in these times. I find, through you, Madam Chair, the point of only 3 being stateless very interesting, given on the different facts that I've been known, but I have to trust the data that is there. And what do you advise, through you, Madam Chair, as a government, for persons that don't have anything? Because it comes right back to our healthcare system. When, God forbid, they become ill, you cannot turn them back. We have air ambulance, they raise hospital bills, they raise up these hospital bills and all these different things. What advice do you have for persons? Is there going to be a sort of amnesty period where persons that believe that their situation is know that their situation is not regulated, so that we can find ways and means to work on that? Because at the end of the day, it all falls back on the burden of the country. And I think that we should see how we can explore certain avenues to correct this. For now, these are my 3 points, and I would appreciate some clarity on that. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, MP Duran. I now give the floor to MP Sarah Wescot-Williams.
Thank you once again, Madam Chair Lady, and a good afternoon. My thanks to the Prime Minister for his introductory remarks on the topic, as well as to Ms. Snyders for her presentation on the topic. Given, Madam Chair Lady, the reference to the numbers and the discrepancy in terms of numbers between the census data, so the data collected in the population census, and the data at the civil registry, could we receive an updated number with respect to population broken down in the different categories? So could we receive that number? I heard reference by both the Prime Minister and Ms. Snyders regarding pension and the way that the numbers, if they're incorrect, can affect the pension payments. And for persons who might no longer be here, have not deregistered, and are abroad. Am I to assume that this reference has to do with the fact that if that is the case, the person would then be collecting the total amount of pension, because one is entitled to receive pension, albeit a reduced amount, if he or she is no longer living on St. Maarten, but has built up pension rights. So am I to understand that a reference to SZV and pensioners, etc., in the context of the population registry, that a reference is about the person then actually collecting a full pension as if he or she is residing here while they're not? Because again, I repeat that residing abroad, once you have built up your pension, you collect your pension, albeit with a certain discount to the pension. So I just want to make sure that I understand the reference to the SZV pension. And now this question to the Prime Minister. Is the Prime Minister and or another minister/ministry aware of the migration needs assessment of Sint Maarten as conducted and reported on by the IOM? And if, because it also refers very much to the population and population registration. So that's why I asked if the Prime Minister is aware of this report. And if not, can this report be actually pulled up? And can Parliament then be informed once this is done what government's reaction and or action will be on the basis of this report, Migration Needs Assessment of St. Maarten, conducted by the IOM, in which some recommendations are made about our population, about registration, about migration, so both immigration and immigration. I heard a reference to the revocation of the Dutch rights, and I asked if the Prime Minister and or Ms. Snijders is aware of a case, I don't know if there were more, but in Curaçao, where the Dutch rights were revoked from a person, and that person, based on whatever criteria, and that person took it to court, and the court decided that neither Kranchi, so their civil registry, or the minister could take away, between quotations, the Dutch rights from someone. And if some elucidation, if aware of that case, and there might have been more such, if some explanation can be given to that in the context of the revocation. So when the Dutch rights based on research and cleaning up is revoked from someone, is that done at the civil registry here? Is that the final point, or is it channeled through the Netherlands for that to happen? And if that is the case, can some further explanation be given about the court case on Curaçao? Did that happen then at Kranchi, at the civil registry, for the court to have taken that decision, is my question. My other question, which has been asked by my colleague MP Heiliger, is indeed how many do we have under the category of onbekend? I heard the stateless part, of course, with the 3. And then and of course, like several of my colleagues have mentioned, especially MP Doran, of course, I am quite aware of where and how nationality and the Dutch rights are regulated. And clearly, and I think that needs to be stressed as often as we can, it is not done by St. Maarten. That's not our purview. We can't. However, as also indicated by Ms. Snijders, when it comes to, 1, changes, be it to the law or to the manual. In the case of the manual, of course, the executors, in this case the civil registry, is consulted when it comes to the law. We receive the proposals for change here at Parliament. Government receives the proposals for change there as well. And so, given that fact, and this is where my question comes in and my suggestion, I know you have awareness campaign, so to speak, about persons being alerted to the fact that you have to give in if you move and, you know, if you leave and all of those kind of things. But wouldn't it not be an idea to also give information about the Dutch nationality itself and maintaining the Dutch nationality? Because you can explain 101 times about where the Dutch nationality is regulated, but persons end up by the civil registry here on Sint Maarten. It is there that they are told, if applicable, that I am sorry, I have researched it, to mention what my colleague mentioned, your grandmother at the time, whatever the case might have been, it's there where that answer is given. And I think it would behoove government and the department to also give just general information to the public with respect to that, because that is where people come and get the information, and that's where they're asked for information. So, Madam Chair Lady, if that can be looked at in terms of giving that kind of information to the public at large. And I too ask the question, fine, and if it is, for example, determined that a person loses their rights and everything that comes with those rights, is there any type of a fang net for those persons and the consequences for them, their children, etc., etc.? I'm sure all of my colleagues are aware of cases that can be referred to and can be mentioned, and I'm sure the government and the civil registry as well. So hence my question about giving some type of awareness and information to the general public, albeit it is not, you know, it's not our jurisdiction. We can decide and in terms of the nationality. So, Madam Chair Lady, yeah, I want to thank you, and I look forward to hearing the response, and especially on that matter of this migration needs assessment of Sint Maarten. Also in the context of the whole issue of the country package, the Landspakket, what we see is that we're becoming very quickly a country of having nice and elaborate policies, and these things are shelved, actually put there nicely, and no action or reaction is given to them, no type of plan of approach in terms of the steps to be taken. I say this in the context of that, and I would like to know if the government is aware of, and if not, if the government can make it a point to take this into consideration and inform Parliament of its response to the migration needs assessment of Sint Maarten. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP Wescot-Williams. Thank you for your valuable input. I now give the floor to MP La Cruz.
A blessed afternoon, and thank you, Madam Chair Lady, Rifir, my fellow members of Parliament, the Prime Minister and his support staff, those in the Tribune and those listening and watching via social media. Madam Chair Lady, through you, I'd first like to make a comment based on the presentation that was made. Thank you for the presentation. It was mentioned numerous times that letters would be sent. I myself have received letters that were sent out literally 4 or 5 months after the date that went out, that were placed in wrong mailboxes or didn't even went out one way or the other. So this is something that definitely government should be looking into and having that discussion with the post office. Or mailboxes that even voting cards were thrown in one mailbox for everyone that lives up the road. And then you literally got people walking around with voting cards from others. So that's just a simple example. Madam Chair Lady, I am also aware, like my fellow colleagues mentioned, exactly who is in charge of the nationality. But what bothers me the most is the fact that we treat our kids, and I say our kids that are born on Sint Maarten, that eventually, at the age of 18, will be able to request the Dutch nationality, but in the meantime, they walk around on Sint Maarten feeling like foreigners. That is something that I think we definitely can do something about. And I say this because once upon a time, the Dutch made an agreement with the US, the Van Rechtswege, that a US citizen could literally, with a birth certificate, a police record, come to Sint Maarten and register here and have the same rights and actually a permanent residency while having no ties to Sint Maarten before. And correct me if I'm wrong, but our kids don't have that right. So I know that from our party, and also MP Roseberg is working on some adjustments to those or that situation. But the leniency from government on dealing with those situations is, to me, somewhat important. Then, Madam Chair Lady, I do understand the cleanup, because I am fully aware also that a few years back there were people in there falsificating and documents and doing all kind of craziness, and the cleanup is definitely needed. But what happens when an individual cannot receive, for example, a birth certificate from a place like Venezuela or Haiti? What happens then? Because, as we all know, it is a mess in those countries. I know another situation with someone from the Middle East that has been on Sint Maarten, had businesses, and now still can't get his documents in order because he cannot receive a birth certificate. So what is the plan of government to deal with that situation? Are these people granted some type of leniency? I am also aware, and I don't know how true it is, I'll know when the time comes around again, as I myself was not born on Sint Maarten, I got somewhat frustrated requesting documents from the Dominican Republic, where I literally have no one that I could trust to get these documents from, to be able to carry those into the immigration office, have those verified under the Van Rechtswege, where I will no longer be asked to provide those documents again because they're already in the system. So what I'm trying to explain is sometimes we have a solution for these problems, but no one knows about it. And going back to what Madam Wescott mentioned, sometimes it's just bringing forward that information for people to be able to know that it is possible. Maybe in an app where an individual could literally go through different questions, asking, hey, how long have you been living on Sint Maarten? When was your first document issued? When was it requested the second time, the third time? And just a simple app that an individual could go through and know, hey, yes, you have the right for it, or no, you have to wait a little longer, which would also ease the burden from the civil registry, people coming to ask questions, or even going up by the governor's cabinet. So we are in a modern time where we could literally get these things done easily, and that would be my suggestion to the government moving forward with something like that. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP La Cruz, for your input. I now give the floor to MP Irian.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Griffier, members of Parliament, the Prime Minister and support staff, and to those viewing by all the different forms of media. Just following up on the MP La Cruz last comment before I go on my other. MP La Cruz mentioned an app. I'm not too sure if he meant to say a specific app, but I would suggest then even a chat box on the government website. So I don't know if that's what you're referring to, MP, but a chat box on the government website where people can just type inside of it, and there's already preloaded information. Yes, no, you go ahead until you get the information that you need. And yes, it's we live in very modern times. There's already companies, and some companies the government already works with that can help to implement that very easily. I know Ms. Snyder is a very hard-working lady at the Civil Registry, and at times even has even short staff. And I would even suggest then that DCOM works with the Civil Registry when it comes to communication. I did see, and I did have some complaints regarding letters that were sent out, where persons were very worried about being deregistered, and the dates on the letters also didn't make sense. I would say it would say that so the letter came in September saying that you were deregistered in June, so the times just didn't match up. So I don't know if you could look into that, and again also the communication to individuals. So this person, for example, that I have a few actually. So this person, for example, they live in the same location for 15 years. They said they never got a letter before. So as was previously mentioned, we have to now look into the post office, etc., in terms of, is the person living at the unit actually receiving letters? And if they receive their voting card, now why would we think that they are not registered as property? Because they recently voted. So it's kind of confusing in terms of why would a letter go out, seeking to see if the person still lives there, but a voting card goes out, and the person has been living there for at least 15 to 20 years. And like I said, I really would strongly recommend communication program with DCOM. So not, let's say, Civil Registry trying on their own budget. No, we have a communications department. Let them create a strategy for you to be able to communicate to the individuals about this program, especially the deregistering program. That'll be all, Madam.
Thank you, MP. Thank you, MP Irian. Are there other members of parliament that would like to chip in? I see MP Sarah Wescot-Williams would like the floor. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. And just briefly to add, can any update be given with respect to the street naming project? Is there anything new and additional to tell us about what's taken place there? And a lot of reference is constantly been made to e-government, digitalization. A lot of money is being budgeted in order to get there. But how close are we to the part of having a PIN by whatever name we are going to call it? In other words, a personal identification number. How close are we to that? One. And this big digitalization project of Sint Maarten, why can, like, a parliament that is also in the same process of digitalizing as much as we can, why can't we be part of that big overall program of government so that we all can benefit from whatever expertise or whatever else one would have? So those three questions I would like to add to my previous questions, and I thank you, Madam Chair Lady, once again.
Thank you, MP Wescot-Williams. I see that MP Doran would like to have the floor. You have the floor, MP Doran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I forgot to ask this question through you. I remember during the presentation, there was a point given that if someone is born here of Jamaican parents, they don't automatically get the Jamaican rights. In certain instances where there's civil war and different things, like let's say in Haiti, at this point, how does that work? Because I know that is the whole government apparatus there is in shambles. In cases like that or any other part of the world, because we have over 100 nationalities, how are these things handled? I remember, I think it was after the earthquake, a couple of years ago, there was some sort of leniency given as to the approach. I would like to know if that is still applicable now, given their current situation or any other situation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Duran. I now give the floor to MP Irian.
Thank you. MP Wescott triggered something regarding the eGov. Yes, so I would also like to know where we with the eGov, but in addition to that, how is the eGov being connected to our tax system? Because I think even more important than having in Holland's a DGID, in the US is Social Security or whatever we decide to use, how far are we with it being connected to the tax system? And in the meantime, 'cause I believe we're still pretty far off in terms of that PIN code or that personal identification number. Can't we now just start to reconcile data? So we have SAV, we have Chamber of Commerce, we have all these different entities that collect data. Can we start to put the data together, clean it up, and start to share data? Because a lot of information is already there. The problem is access to this data. So every institution is being its own silo and not willing to share the information. Once you start to share the information and clean it up, we'll see a lot more easier access to information, and there'll be a lot less burden on the civil registry, I believe. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Irian. I'm not seeing that there are other members that would like to speak. Just to add input to this discussion, I do believe that communication is very important, and for the public to understand these procedures and seeing the different nationalities, it might be an idea to put it in the language that they understand and a step-by-step procedure so that less misunderstanding can take place versus nationality and non-nationality. That being said, Prime Minister, do I need to adjourn? And if so, for how many minutes so that we can get the answers back to the members of Parliament? You have the floor.
Thank you, President. If it's possible to give me the opportunity for adjournment of 5 minutes just to discuss with my support staff what's the best way for answering all the questions that we just got. Please.
Thank you, Prime Minister. The meeting will be adjourned for 5 minutes. Meeting adjourned. I hereby reopen this meeting and give the floor to the Prime Minister. You have the floor, Prime Minister.
Thank you, President. On your question for giving back answers to the questions, I have the proposal for, if with your permission, to come back in a week's time to give answers to the questions, or to your decision and discretion. The other option is also for me to send the answers in writing. It's up to you which one you want. I can do both of them.
Before coming to that decision, is there any feedback from the members? Is there an objection to getting it in writing or not? MP Wescot-Williams, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair Lady, and thanks to the Prime Minister for his proposal as to the continuation of this very important topic. I can agree to receiving the answers in writing. If the week can also be where it pertains, the week's time can also be where it pertains to the answering in writing. And based on those answers and the information received, this committee can decide to continue in whatever fashion on what it is that we receive from government. I think that's also important to establish, and as soon as we possibly can as a committee. So I would want to see maybe a combination of those two things. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP Wescot-Williams. MP Doran?
I don't want to sound repetitive, but I wasn't too clear what my colleague just mentioned. But if it is that we receive it in writing and still continue with the meeting, then I'm all in favor, because I think that this is a topic that touches many individuals within our community, and for them to hear it, it's much better than we, as members of parliament, receiving it. And I would like to suggest that both happen. So if we get it in advance so that we can study it and have a more constructive dialogue, would be my preference. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Doran. MP Irian, you have the floor.
Thank you. So I'm not for the questions being sent in writing in this particular meeting. I also have questions posed officially through Parliament to the Prime Minister almost 3 months now without a response. So I don't really trust getting my answers on time when it comes in writing. And as MP Doran mentioned, that there are a lot of people tuned in to this meeting today that want to hear the answers, and this will be posted on the radios of government and so forth. So I believe that we should come back in person to have this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, members of parliament. I will then now decide that the proposal for the questions to be received in writing in a week, and then parliament. I hereby close this committee meeting, adjourn this committee meeting. My bad.